Welcome back. We are now going to round the decimals. The procedure below provides the steps to follow when rounding decimals to a place value to the right of the decimal point. Identify the digit 1 positioned to the right of the given place value. I would say the specified rounding place value. If the digit in step 1 is 5 or greater, you're going to add 1 to the digit in the asked for place value. And then we strip off all the ones to the right of that. If the digit in step 1 is less than 5, you just strip off all the digits and leave it alone. So if you think about what we were just doing with these crazy decimals, it's kind of like figuring out, when I had 54 thousandths versus this 5501, like if I wanted to know what hundredth this was closest to, it's closest to 55 hundredths or 5500 ten thousandths. Like that's how the number would round in decimals, kind of. I don't think that works. Hold on. Okay. Meh. We'll do the procedure. It's just on the number line. Like if we were going to plot them on the number line, then it goes to the closest number that has the specified number of places and no more than that. So sometimes it will go down, sometimes it will go up. It just depends on where it falls on the halfway mark between two decimals with the specified number of digits. All right, so 45 and 864 thousandths. We're going to round this to the tenths place. So I like to put a little mark under the one that we're rounding to. So I want to write a digit in that place. I was also a chem major for a while, so this is also the way I would notate significant figures. So they got kind of similar in my head. So to figure out, am I going to round the 8 up or am I going to keep it in 8? Those are my two choices. Is it going to be closer to 8 tenths or 9 tenths? So if I was looking at 8 tenths would be 800 thousandths. 9 tenths would be 900 thousandths. So is 864 closer to 800 or 900? And 864 is past the halfway between those two. So this is going to round up. The 6 is 5 or greater. So the 8 is going to round up to a 9. So this becomes 45 and 9 tenths. That is what it is closer to. Now note, it going down to 7 was never a choice here. It is always keep it the same or add 1. All right, so thousandths now. 1.579 tenth hundred. All right, so the 9 is what we're focusing on. So I have 579 and then 26. Is that going to be closer to 579, or if I round up 1, it's going to trigger a rollover in 2, it'd be 580. Well, it's only 26 after that, so it's going to stay at the 1.579. The 2 is not 5 or greater, so we're just going to drop the 2 and the 6 off and leave it 1.579. The other choice would have been 1.580. And in a mathematical sense, you wouldn't have to write the 0. In a chemistry significant figure sense, you would write the 0. So I personally would actually recommend writing the 0 because you're saying that 0 is my wiggle room place value number. I know it's really close to 580 thousandths, not it's just really close to 58 hundredths. For chemistry, that's a whole nother degree of precision. It makes a difference. All right, we got another thousandths, and we normally do tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and it just depends on the type of number. Like money is often rounded to hundredths because 2 decimal places is how we write our cents, our change. Alrighty, so tenth, hundredth, thousandths. Oh, this one will be fun. All right, so we're on that 9. So 0.049872. So this is either going to stay 0.049. That looks like a 6, so 0.049. That's our lower number, or the upper one, I'd round that up 1 and it would be 0.050. So let me so we have different colors. So the 0.049, then I have 872. So 0.049000, 0.050000. That 872, is it closer to the going up one or is it closer to the one below? The 887 or 872 is above the 550, 500 mark. The 8 is 5 or higher, so we are going to go with the top number. So we would say that this rounds to 50 thousandths. Like that is how it would be read from a chemistry perspective. The mathematician would probably say it's 500ths because they don't recognize trailing zeros as being significant and all, because in math land, everything is infinitely precise. Someday I will get that fixed. All right, now this last one, we are rounding to hundredths. So we have 289 and 0.7148, 100 thousandths, good Lord. But we're going to focus on our hundredths, which is that 7. All right, so I have the 7 and then I have 148. Is that going to be closer to zeros or is it going to be closer to 1,000? Well, 148 is pretty low. That 1 is definitely less than 5. So this is going to just cut off at the 0.07 and we ignore the rest. So this is 289.07. So 289 and 7 hundredths. All right. So hopefully that explanation made sense and didn't confuse you. If it confused you, but you'd already understood rounding, I apologize. Please come to office hours and we will sort it out. If it was weird, but you're not confused, good. You don't have to do it my way. You just have to do it a way that is consistent and makes sense to you. Consistent meaning it always does the same thing and it's doing the right thing. Then we have a rounding question. The wilderness area of Denali National Park is 2.14658 million kilometers squared, or million square kilometers. Round the decimal value to the nearest hundredth. So kind of 2 ways to think about this, but they don't want you to convert this out of million square kilometers. They want to know, rounded to 2 decimal places, how many million square kilometers is Denali National Park, roughly. So it really should say the nearest hundredth of a million square kilometers. Like it would read weird, but that would be the more precise way to do it. This is technically vague. This is what I mean about asking questions. Like I could see the argument either way. All right, so that 4 is where we're going. And the next number is 6. That's above the 5. It's past our halfway mark, so this is going to go up. 2.15 million square kilometers, or kilometers squared. All right. So that is it on that. The crash course in decimals again and the rounding. If you have any questions, I can even do sig figs if you're stuck taking like a chemistry class, just a little. It's been a couple of years. Yeah, we're going to go with a couple. All right. I'm going to go back and do 2a-3 next, multiplying and dividing fractions.